Night, forest, silence. So deep it makes your own breath feel foreign. Marina stood at the old gate. The sky above was a pale morning gray, and the dacha of her childhood looked as if it had been cut out of a faded photograph. Everything was still in its place. The cherry tree by the porch, the peeling paint on the windows. And yet, something was wrong. Her parents had died a month ago, suddenly, tragically, in their sleep. A gas leak, no pain, no trace. The house was empty. As their only heir, Marina had come to settle things. Though deep inside, she knew she just wanted to feel close to them one last time. To the memories, to the tea with boim, the humming samovar, and the sound of the old rotary phone. The phone, it was still there, in the hallway between the kitchen and the bedroom. Old with a crack on the side. Marina remembered playing with her father, seeing who could dial fastest on the spinning disc. Everything was eerily calm, too calm. She decided to stay the night. The first call, it came at 2:11 a.m. The phone rang. The sound was distant, muffled, as if from far away. Marina awoke instantly. The sound pierced the darkness like a blade. She moved on instinct, picked up the receiver. Marina, she froze. Mom? My little girl, you came back. I'm so happy. I've been waiting for you. It was her voice, familiar, gentle, but there was something wrong, like it was coming through water or a broken radio. Mom, how? You know how. We didn't really leave. We were just locked away. But you can let us out. You're home now, sweetheart. Open the attic door. We're there. Marina dropped the receiver. It hit the floor with a loud clatter. The dial tone hummed in the darkness. Steady, indifferent. The next day, she told herself it was a dream, a stress response, or maybe some old auto-dialer glitch. But in the village, no one had used rotary phones in years, and the house line had long been disconnected. The second call. The phone rang again the next night, same time, 2:11. Marina, almost hypnotized, approached again, her hand lifted on its own. Silence. Then, a child's voice. You forgot. Who are you? Marina whispered. The one you left with you in the cellar. You told me not to be scared, but then you left. A cold wave rose from her feet. A buried memory stirred. Something long locked away. She remembered hiding in the cellar with her parents during a storm. That much was real, but she didn't remember anyone else being there. Then the voice changed, back to her mother's. If you don't open the door, we'll call every night until you forget who you are. The curse of the village. Marina went to see Valentina, the elderly neighbor who had lived there forever. The woman opened the door just a crack. You're hearing them, then they've called you, Valentina said without blinking. Who? The ones left behind in dead houses. Your mother knew, but she didn't say. Every home here has its time. When the family dies, but someone stays behind, it begins to call. Through that line, the one that was never meant to be buried in the ground. What are you talking about, Vidal? You must never answer. First time, they come in dreams. Second, they speak. Third, you forget who you are, and then they take you, and you become part of the house. Food for their memory. Marina returned home, shaken. Her heart raced. That night, she decided not to answer. But the ringing began early, 1:50 a.m. It wouldn't stop. She tried music, covered her ears, but the sound pushed through. It wasn't just the phone ringing. The house itself was calling her. The third night, at 2:11, the receiver fell off the hook by itself, and the voice came without her lifting it. You're alone. You have always been alone. They died back then, in the cellar, but you stayed with us. Visions filled her mind. She saw herself, a child, locked in a dark pit, crying. Her parents closing the cellar door, and beside her, someone else. A dark shape, faceless, stroking her hair. You forgot us, but we remember. Come back. Marina climbed to the attic. With each step, the air grew thinner. The door was boarded up, but it opened. on its own. Inside, among the dust, stood an old mirrored wardrobe. In its reflection wasn't her. It was the little girl, watching, smiling, and behind her, her parents, and the faceless figure. "It's time to come home, Marish." She stepped forward. A log. A week later, the house went up for sale. A new family moved in that spring, a mother, a father, and their teenage daughter. Everything was peaceful, until the first storm, when from the hallway came the ring of an old rotary phone no one remembered bringing in. Bob was 15 when his parents sent him to spend the summer at his aunt's village house. They worked nonstop in the city and didn't want him wasting time at home on the computer. "Fresh air will do you good. You'll help out in the garden," they said. The village was old, almost abandoned. His aunt's house stood at the edge of the woods, far from the others. It was quiet, too quiet. In the backyard stood a well, covered in moss with a rotting wooden roof. It looked like it breathed when no one was watching. On the very first night, his aunt said something strange. "Don't go near the well, not during the day, not at night, especially if you hear someone calling your name." Bob wanted to laugh, to ask if she was joking, but she didn't even look at him. She just kept slicing potatoes like she hadn't said anything at all. The first few days passed peacefully. The sky hung low, the forest exhaled dampness, and the mosquitoes never stopped humming. But at night, something kept him awake, a slow creaking, as if someone was turning the handle of the well. Creak, creak, then a splash, like a bucket dropping into water. His aunt told him no one in the village used that well anymore. They got their water from the neighbors. It was safer, she said. "We don't drink from it. That water isn't for drinking." On the third day, she started getting his name wrong. She called him Peter. That was the name of his cousin who drowned when they were 9. In a well. This well. "You remember," she said softly, "we saved you that day, but we couldn't reach him in time." But Bob didn't remember. He was told Peter drowned in a river. No one had ever mentioned a well. On the 4th night, he woke to a whisper, like someone standing just outside his window, calling his name. "Bob, open up." He looked out. The well's lid was open. The bucket was rising slowly, like someone was turning the crank from below. From the blackness, a hand began to emerge, pale with long, water-swollen fingers. Then a second hand. Then a face, his own face but dead, with empty eyes and a torn, twisted smile. He stumbled back, ran for the door, but it wouldn't open. His aunt was standing in the hallway, pale, still. Her shadow flickered like smoke. "You came on your own," she whispered. "You opened it. That means you're his now." He ran to the bathroom, locked the door, covered his ears. But through the silence, he could still hear it. Creak, creak, creak. By morning, he was gone. The yard was empty. On the grass, his phone. The last video was 12 seconds long. A blurry face on screen, distorted like it was underwater. And in the background, a voice. "You're here now. You're part of it." The well was shut, tightly sealed. His aunt didn't say a word. No tears, no panic. She just stared at the wall and kept calling someone by the wrong name. Since then, no one's heard the creaking, but those who live nearby say that on certain nights, if you stay awake long enough, you can hear a voice, distant, dry, and cold, calling your name. Now I lock the windows even in daylight, because sometimes the water looks back. Sveta arrived in the village alone. Her mother had gone off to a health resort, and someone needed to look after Grandma's house while she was in the hospital. The village was called Shipovo. It sat on boggy land, and even in the summer it felt like October. Wet, dark, and heavy. The house was old, the floors creaked, the stove moaned at night, and the silence was so thick it pressed against your ears. It started on the second evening. Sveta heard someone walking behind the house. She didn't see anyone. Only the sound, soft footsteps over wet grass. Once she looked out the window and caught a glimpse of a figure slipping between the trees. Too thin, too tall. She thought maybe it was old Taisia, the neighbor, who sometimes wandered around in the garden without a flashlight. But the next day when Sveta asked her, Taisia's face turned pale. "Don't open the door at night," she said, "even if someone asks you to." Sveta gave a nervous laugh. "Who are you talking about?" "The one that comes from beyond the bog," Taisia said quietly. "You mustn't call him. He comes when he hears his name." Sveta rolled her eyes. Another village legend. But that night, someone really did start calling her. Softly, almost like a breath, from the yard. The voice was hoarse, old. "Sweet Sveta, come outside. I've found you." She froze at the window. Someone was standing by the gate. A woman in a scarf. It looked like her grandmother, the one who was supposedly still in the hospital, standing, staring, not moving. "Gran!" The figure twitched, then slowly stepped out of view behind the shed. The next morning, Sveta called the hospital. They told her her grandmother had died 2 days ago. Sveta almost packed her bags then and there, but the village bus only ran on even-numbered days, and that night was the 5th. The house smelled of damp wood. The floorboards were starting to rot under her feet. Something scratched in the walls. Probably mice, or at least she wanted to believe it was mice. And just before dawn, the voice returned. This time it came from under the porch. "Sveta, open up. I'm cold. Let me in. Go away. Let me in. I missed you. I'm your mother, your teacher. I'm you." She covered her ears, but the voice didn't stop. It wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was inside her head. In the morning, she went outside and looked beneath the porch. There was an old cellar down there, boarded up long ago. Her grandmother had always warned her never to touch it. Sveta pulled the wood off anyway. The cellar was empty, but there were bare footprints in the dirt, leading upward. When she went back into the house, the front door was wide open, and on the kitchen table, there was a bowl full of raw meat. Someone had just exhaled over it. The steam was still rising. Next to it, a note, in her own handwriting, "Feed it before it leaves. After that, it'll be too late." She hadn't written that, but her hand trembled, because the smell of the meat was disturbingly familiar. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window with an old knife clutched in her hand. The clock stopped at 3:12. The village held its breath, and when everything went completely still, she heard the voice again, not from the yard this time, but right behind the door. "Sveta, let me in." She didn't answer. The voice waited. Then came the scratching. Slow, deliberate, fingernails on wood. And then a whisper, directly into the keyhole. "If you won't open nicely, I'll come in anyway. I'm already inside." She screamed, but no one came. In the morning, the door was wide open. The table, empty, the bowl was gone. And near the bed, there was only a strip of wet cloth and a handful of her hair. Sveta was never found. They locked up the house. The villagers said she left, went back to the city. But no one really believed it. And now, in Shipovo, no one opens their doors at night, not even for family, because they all know the truth. Sometimes a name is an invitation. Now, I don't even leave my phone on loud, because if it rings and says my name, I might not be strong enough to ignore it.